Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Well, if you've been paying attention to the classifieds, you know that the last couple years have not been great for sellers of boas and other reptiles in general. Overall, prices are down, people don't have money to spend on them, and the economic situation for many people still looks pretty grim. But today I wanted to say a little bit more details about some of the things that are some of the trends that are going on right now in the boa market, as well as the reptile market as a whole, as well as where I think it may be headed, as well as a few things I've seen that are quite disturbing that I'm definitely concerned about for the future. But first of all, as you know, inflation still continues to be really bad. Anyone who's been to a grocery store in the last couple of years is probably going to be pretty shocked by the increases in prices. And my jaw still drops over some of the prices I've seen lately on many household groceries and other items. They might publish the statistic of 3% per year inflation, but you can go to the grocery store and the numbers are much, much higher. We all know this. We all know that the numbers for inflation are cooked and they're highly suspect to make it look like the situation isn't as bad as it really is. So anyway, the point is people don't have money, right? And boas and reptiles in general are a luxury item. Okay, you only buy them after you buy your food and you pay your rent and you pay your gas bill and things like that. So a lot of people just don't have the money to spend on reptiles anymore. And then we have to look at supply and demand, okay? Things go down in price as the demand goes down and the supply goes up. They go up in price as the demand goes up and the supply goes down. The demand for many reptiles has gone down over the last couple of years as the supply has gone up, because a lot of people got into reptile breeding back at the start of the pandemic when they had all of the stimulus money that was issued by the government and lots of time. And the majority of these people decided, I'm going to make millions of dollars breeding ball pythons, and they believed a lot of the lies that they heard about make your money breeding ball pythons, and now we're seeing the repercussions of that. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. Luckily, the boa market is much better off than a lot of other reptile markets like the ball python market. And locality boas in general still are doing quite well. Prices are remaining constant or going up, and I still have constant demand for most of my locality boas. So if you can produce really high quality reptiles that people really want and the supply is low, you can continue to do quite well. But if you're going to get in something that lots of people are working with, that's easy to breed, there's no way you're going to even be able to break even, let alone make any money if that's why you're getting into it. And of course, no one should ever get into breeding reptiles to make money. There are lots of other far more lucrative ways to make money than breeding reptiles. And I've gone on at length about the financial aspects of reptile breeding in some of my other videos, so I won't say anything more about that. But I wanted to say that the way that I keep tabs on the reptile market as a whole is by looking at the online classifieds. And today there's really only one online classifieds left, called Morph Market. A lot of people ask me if I'm on Morph Market. No, I'm not on Morph Market. There are several reasons for this that maybe I can get into in a different video. But unfortunately, fauna classifieds and kingsnake.com are pretty much dead at this point. So all we have now is Morph Market, and there's a lot of issues with Morph Market. But anyway, Morph Market shows you what reptiles are up being listed for, not necessarily what they sold for, but what people are trying to get for them at least. And there are lots and lots and lots of listings. And the first shocker to me is how many listings there are on Morph Market right now. You can sort by different types of reptile. And I look at the ball pythons. There's currently over 32,000 ball pythons on Morph Market. 32,000, that's crazy. Okay? And another thing to look at is the prices of some of these animals. Because as you know, there used to be ball pythons that people were paying 5 and 6 figures for. Crazy prices. And now, what are they going for? Well, I didn't look at individual ball pythons, and to be honest, I don't really know or care about ball python morphs, so I don't know what the one that sold for $100,000 was. It's probably worth about 200 bucks these days. But I did look at how many of them were selling for really dirt cheap prices, and I just organized by the price from the lowest to the highest and started looking through. And there are ball pythons now 15, 20 bucks for a ball python. You know, I even looked at like the price going up, and there are hundreds and hundreds for $50 or less. And to me, what's insane about this is that the cost just to maintain an animal for a year, like a ball python, it's got to be at least 50 bucks for food, for substrate, for electricity, not even mentioning the space in your house that it takes up. Okay, so there's no way these people are even breaking even at these prices. And like I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of them, so it's not like they're selling like hotcakes. And what's really concerning is a lot of these animals are just rescues, just ones that people want to get rid of, because they've had enough of it, because people bred way too many ball pythons, and now nobody wants them. And this isn't anything new. This has been getting worse and worse over the last, 10 or 20 years. I've been, at reptile shows you can go, people are selling ball pythons as little as $5, I've heard, and people are just getting them to feed to their other snakes, which is pretty sickening. And what's really disturbing, when I was a teenager back in the late 80s, early 90s, if there was a ball python in a pet shop in Connecticut where I lived, if you're lucky enough to get one, it was like $150 for a regular good old wild type ball python before all the morphs. But the value of these things has just been completely eroded. Nobody wants them. These poor animals are suffering. It's just a really bad thing going on. And then I also hear that any reptile show now is just like 90% ball pythons. So very few people that are into anything else actually go to the reptile shows, because they just don't really, they're not interested in ball python morphs. But for some reason, everybody decided back at the start of the pandemic they were going to get into these things, and now we have the repercussions of that. Another disturbing thing with Morph Market is that now they have these auctions where people are auctioning off their animals to the highest bidder. And that just really cheapens the value of these animals. When you start something for 99 cents and then you hope it's going to go up to the actual value of, let's say, 300 bucks, but it ends up selling for like 87.55 or something. I mean, what does that tell people about the value of your animals, that you're just putting them up to the highest bidder? I mean, I understand if you're really desperate to get rid of these animals or to rehome them, but it's just really bad optics for reptile breeders to be doing these reptile auctions. And also, it's really gives people not an incentive to really take good care of their animals. I mean, if you buy something on an auction for $47.50 that used to sell for like 500 bucks, are you really going to put that much effort into it? You might just say, well, it's a disposable pet. And even if you don't go into it with that kind of attitude, if you pay very little for something, you're probably not going to value it that much. It's like this instant gratification society we live in. You want something quick, cheap on Amazon, you get your fast food, you go to TikTok or YouTube. Everything is so cheap these days and so little effort, and people put so little into it. And anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent because as you can tell, I'm not very happy with modern life. But back to the reptiles. I was hoping that the reptile market would improve in 2025. It's been really bad in 2020. Probably around 2022 is when it started to get worse. 2023 and 2024 were not very good. But 2025 so far, at least for the reptile market overall, doesn't seem to be much better. So we'll see. Maybe 2026 will be the year. I think the reptile market will turn around eventually. Just not sure why. But back to my original point about the locality boas, one of the nice things is that because locality boas are a specialty that few people are into, and that they have kind of a higher barrier of success than some of the other areas, there is still low supply and high demand for locality boas. Prices have even been going up on a lot of boas, like the Tarahumara dwarf boa, like this one. And these are great boas, well worth every penny, even though the prices are higher. And one of my favorite locality boas to work with. Just love these animals. Back on the topic of Morph Market, of course we have boas on Morph Market also. And as of now, there's about 4,500 boas on Morph Market, 4,500 listings. So not as many as ball pythons, but still quite a bit. And if you look at them, the vast majority are morph boas. Hey, it is Morph Market. There are some pure locality boas, but we're talking about a few hundred. And then we have thousands and thousands of morph boas. And some of the more common morph boas, there are so many listings that are virtually the same. When we're talking about things like VPI, T-positive albinos, or call sunglows, or hypojungles, things like that, these things unfortunately now are a dime a dozen, and they were kind of overbred. They were not as hard to breed a lot of morph boas as it is to breed a lot of locality boas. A lot more of a supply, so the price has come down quite a bit. A lot of the morph boas, I'd say, certainly the more common ones, the prices now are about half what they were about 10 years ago. So it is a pretty steep decline. Not nearly as bad as with the ball pythons though. However, as mentioned, the locality boas are holding their own or even increasing in price. So we'll have to see how the prices hold up over the next few years. Maybe 2026 will be the year that the cycle finally goes in the opposite direction. These economic cycles are really not anything new, and with a lot of activities including boa breeding and reptile keeping, it's kind of boom or bust, up and down, etc. So I'm pretty confident that the reptile market will pick up eventually. And so I wanted to end just by saying that if you're going to be breeding reptiles, especially some of the more common ones, please do it responsibly and really think about whether you should be breeding these reptiles given the current excess of certain types of animals on the morph market and other outlets to get reptiles. With some of the more common types of reptiles, there are just boatloads of them on morph market, and you probably want to go check there just to see how the supply is before you create any more animals to add to the supply. And I know this is going to sound hypocritical coming from me as a reptile breeder, but I'm doing the same thing as far as what I'm planning on breeding for next year. If it's something that I don't think is going to move really quick or that is really not all that much in demand, I'm not going to be breeding it next year. As I mentioned, my locality boas tend to do really well. Morph boas, I've had kind of more mixed success with them. I've bred some really nice morph boas over the last couple years. I still have a few from 2024. They're really nice animals, but just still sitting on them. And bear in mind that if you have an animal like this that there's just maybe not quite as much demand for, you may need to take care of it for a year or even longer before you find its new home. And that's just something that every breeder has to accept. So if you don't have the space or time or money to house all of these baby boas, you should really think twice about breeding them. A lot of people, when they see these types of conditions, they just kind of sit out, maybe take the season off from breeding or only breed a subset of what they were going to breed. What you definitely shouldn't be doing is just breeding something for the sake of breeding it. So really think about whether the babies are going to be in demand and whether it's going to be a good idea to add them onto the reptile market with all of the competition that's out there. Anyway, just a few words for wisdom. Let me know if you have any thoughts about this topic or have any experiences to relate. I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and enjoy your boas.